girls, it looks like Apple is doing some weird stuff behind the scenes, because according to the new reports, it looks like Apple is looking to drop buttons on the smartphones. What is Apple doing? Let's talk about what they've been doing. Also on today's episode, Samsung's Galaxy S22 has got a major setback. For those of you that like their phones for the number one reason that they put a lot of hardware, they're going to be taking away one particular item that is probably the most vital part of their smartphone. And lastly, to top and round off all the rumors for today's episode, let us discuss the MacBook Pro M1X models, as we have now gotten confirmed that they are coming in the fall, but also with a price hike. All that on today's episode, so stay tuned. So story number one, the main story, let's talk about the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, we have heard a lot of rumors coming from this particular model, mostly because of what Apple's been doing behind the scenes. It seems that Apple has been doing a lot of internal testing with different technologies and different implementations of the 13 Pro Max, and while most of them aren't going to see the light of day until either next year or the year after, a lot of them really have us scratching our head and wondering, what is Apple doing? Well, according to several reports, it seems that Apple not only is working on an iPhone with no ports or reportedly in-display fingerprint scanners, they are now also working on a variant with no buttons. According to Mac rumors, it seems that Apple is in favor of a new metal frame with a device showing that it has less damage over time in terms of physical buttons and keys. They are also looking to make the phone more symmetrical in design as a one-piece flush with a more intuitive design. And to round it all off, this model is supposed to have more of a visible and invisible-like user experience, where it'll feel more like a smooth and seamless transition when using your phone. Now, the technology that they're going for was a patent that they had used a couple of years ago, which I think I covered in my early days. That was way back when I was just starting out. And basically, it was a sliding mechanism where it would not only use tap sensors and also would have gestures. It would know when you're trying to increase the volume by tapping or sliding, but that it would also act as a force field touch if you ever wanted to communicate with the device as well. Now, this kind of technology is really cool, so I could definitely see Apple doing this, but according to the reports, we won't be seeing this model until, at the bare minimum, 2021. Or at least the end of 2022. I apologize. Sorry about that. But anyway, talking about it in all together, it really makes you ask the question, what is Apple doing behind the scenes? Because we've heard reports of them working on Touch ID built into the display. We've heard of reports about them dropping the charging port on the Pro Max. And we've also now heard of a buttonless iPhone. I think that Apple is preparing something of this sort, but for future releases. They're just doing their testings now, so that way if they find something that they like, they can excel it further and they can continue to develop it later down the road. I don't think we're going to see Touch ID for a while, especially with iPhones, because as I discussed in my previous episode, they shot themselves in the foot with the marketing on that phone for Face ID. But overall, I think that Apple is trying to experiment and use different technologies behind the scenes, so that way when they release the phone, they'll be able to kind of, how would I say this, make a better and more perfected version of their design. But don't think of it as it's going to happen right now. It's not going to happen now. It's going to happen next year or the year after, depending on when they decide to pull the trigger. So don't get your hopes up right away. Just follow me for the rumors. Alrighty, story number two, let's talk about Samsung. Now, as you know, the Samsung Galaxy S22 is just right around the corner, just like every other smartphone every year. But this year might be proving to be a very different take. According to Samsung News and other outlets, it seems that the S22 is going to drop one of its biggest features inside of the Galaxies, the cooling vapor chamber. Now, as you know, Samsung makes a big fuss about cooling in their smartphones, most notably because they've had exploding devices in the past, so you could understand kind of why. But this year around, they are opting for a more thermal paste base as the heat condenser and trying to save costs by removing the vapor chamber in favor of the thermal paste. Now, this to me is a sad negative for me, because I always looked at Samsung phones to be the Swiss Army knife of Androids, or what an Android phone is capable of, and not just by the software but the hardware. And to see that they're dropping something so vital, because a lot of these phones overheat and a lot of people complain about them, it is kind of sad in a sense to see that they're willing to cut corners with some of the most important features, but it's not the world's most leading engine, and I would honestly argue that it's probably better, but for the worst. So we'll have to wait and see what S22 users feel, we'll have to wait and see what they get their hands on, and most of all, just have to wait and see what the outcome of this is going to be, because this could go one of two ways. This could be an improvement for Samsung as they have finally figured out the cooling in their phones, or it could be a huge negative, and we'll be seeing it on the 10 o'clock news. We'll see. And last story, the final story, guys, and we're out of here because in a couple of minutes, yes, I'm editing and filming this, I am going back to school. Hashtag back to school for the last time ever, senior year in college. But anyway, last story, let's talk about the M1X MacBook Pros. Now, the M1X MacBook Pros are going to be the next, obviously, MacBook Pro models that we've been talking about for this channel for a while. However, it does seem that with this new performance in hardware and design will come a new price change. According to several reports and some leakers online, they are claiming that while the 14 and 16 inch are going to be on par with the same performance, so you don't have to buy the bigger model to get the better performance, both of them will be equal from day one. The biggest change going into this and coming out of the box is going to be the price change. They don't give it an idea of how much it is, but taking a look at the numbers now, we're probably going to expect around $1799 starting price for the 14 inch, and then of course $2,000 plus. Now, I would argue that that is a little bit expensive, but then when I think about it, Apple does sell a cheaper MacBook Pro. This M1X is supposed to be the more high performance powered MacBook Pro. The M1 MacBook Pro kind of already does a lot of the budget end at $1299, but still giving you some excellent performance. So I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but I can understand why people would think that it might be a little expensive starting price. But at the same breath, I'm not really mad, because if you have the Apple Card, you can finance the thing in 12 months. And if you do a trade-in, there you go. You saved yourself some money. But let me hear your thoughts down below. Do you think we're going to see some price hikes in the future for the MacBook Pros? I think personally it's going to happen, and I'm willing to accept that. And that's for today's episode of Technoid. Now guys, really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button. If you disliked the video, you can hit the dislike button. That helps circulate my views as well. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Take care, stay safe, have a good day, and peace!